Okay, good morning again, everyone. This is Nick Petro, National Weather Service in Raleigh, with the Monday morning weekly impact weather briefing with expanded coverage for the current winter weather event that we have ongoing. It's 11:30 Monday morning, the 12th of March. So well, before I show you the radar, I wanted to point out here that we have slightly expanded the winter weather advisory within the last 2 hours to include Stanley, Montgomery, and Moore counties, and then all these others were already in it earlier today. So anyway, that's the latest on the watch warning and advisory products. Let me go ahead and switch to current radar. So let me turn off the precipitation type indicator on this program. It's certainly gives us a rough idea of where the changeover has occurred, but certainly we're keeping our eye on these heavier bands because, as we've been talking about the last few days, we're concerned about precipitation rates, how hard it's going to come down, and that driving the changeover and driving accumulations. Again, I'll stress again yet another time that accumulation will be dependent upon the rates, and it always is, but especially this time of year in March, with temperatures barely at or even remaining above freezing. In order to get accumulation, it has to come down really hard to overcome those warm conditions at the ground, and then it has to come down really hard to get it to change over in the first place. If we didn't have heavier bands, then it would be just mainly a non-event. But certainly some of these heavier bands mixing in are causing some issues here. Now, where has it changed? Well, let me turn back on the precip type indicator. Again, this is a program that just gives us a rough idea. Let me turn off, or let me leave on, I should say, some of these reports here. And these are more or less real-time reports. We're getting report of snow occurring obviously in Greensboro. That's happened, and most of the Triad has already switched over to snow. Let me turn on the airport observations, and we're seeing reports of temperatures dropping to close to freezing there, in Henderson, so there should be a change over there to sleet and snow soon, and Roxborough is close, although remaining above freezing. As I go back toward Winston-Salem, you can still see there's a half-mile in snow, and Greensboro is also reporting a half-mile visibility in snow and 32 degrees, as well as Lexington. So you can see this P-type indicator is pretty close. We should, as we head through the rest of, or at least in the early afternoon, we should gradually see this changeover line. And again, this isn't exact where it's at. There is variation. We have gotten a few reports of sleet mixing in orange, and one even that just recently came in Durham County. And I suspect this probably bends back towards Henderson as well. So anyway, expect that to gradually shift east as we head through the afternoon hours, and particularly because the whole storm system will be shifting east. Let me turn off the P-type indicator. Well, actually, let me switch to a different program here, and let me put on radar to show that. And let me turn off the precipitation type indicator. Bear with me for just a second while I reload this. And you can see as the whole storm system begins to shift east, so too will that transition line. And you can see one thing we're concerned about for this afternoon is an area of developing heavier precipitation rates in sort of like an area like this. This band right in here, we're concerned when that shifts east, when that moves east and northeast, that as that comes down and those heavier rates come down, that could again help to erase that warm air aloft and erase that warm air closer to the surface and allow us to experience a changeover further east. So we're keeping our eye on that area. I will also point out too, one other thing I want to point out here is the back edge is, it's not too far west of I-77, so we're looking at only another couple hours, maybe 2-3 hours at the most, of snow accumulating in the Triad region. So we're feeling pretty good about our snowfall totals of 2 to 3 inches in the Triad region. I will also point out that notice these reflectivity values are lighter. So as precipitation rates decrease, then we're going to start to see that snow, begin to compact and even melt on its own because of how warm, things were preceding. So anyway, things, we feel pretty comfortable with the forecast that's out right now for the Triad region, maybe another inch or so of accumulation before this back edge reaches you. This is all rain in here over the Triangle region. Again, as these heavier rates come up from the southwest, we may see, again, a gradual changeover across the Triangle region to change over to sleet and then perhaps some snow. I will put on some temperatures here, and across the southern coastal plain, it just seems so warm that it would be really hard to get a changeover to anything other than, it would be hard to get a changeover to frozen precipitation. Places like Laurinburg, Rayford, Fayetteville, and Clinton, I think you're in good shape staying rain throughout. So anyway, we're keeping an eye on this. This is kind of a nowcast mode. We're watching this band come across, and we'll see. One other thing I'll point out: notice how much warmer we are. We're starting out warmer across the Triangle region and coastal plain versus precipitation that started earlier in the day in the Triad. In the Triad, it started while it was still dark, so there was less warmth for it to overcome. So in the east, Triangle and coastal plain regions, even after that changeover occurs, a lot of what could have accumulated will have been depleted thanks to the process of simply trying to cool the atmosphere. So that's why our snowfall totals are less in the Triangle and coastal plain regions. All right. So that's kind of a look at the regional radar and a rundown of how we think this is all going to play out the rest of this afternoon. Let's go back to the slides, as that may give you sort of an idea again of the timing. This is little change here is what we've been shown the last couple of days. Particularly the greatest impacts obviously still occurring along and north of Interstate 85. Basically anywhere north of 40 could see some snow changeover mixing in, but again later in the afternoon and into the early evening. One thing I'll point out too is that places that have gotten accumulation so far, so we're talking the Triad, and wherever there accumulates snow or sleet later this afternoon, we'll have to watch out tomorrow morning for some localized black ice issues. Not thinking this is going to be a huge problem, but again, wherever the accumulations have occurred will be the more likely places to see that black ice issues. Okay, so again, another way to kind of convey the timing, you'll see here that probably in about another hour, as some of those heavier bands come up, we should begin to see that transition to snow and sleet shift east toward the Triangle. This might be a little aggressive here timing-wise. We'll have to wait and see, again, watching that heavier band. And then, as I pointed out, places from Rockingham to Laurinburg to Rayford and Fayetteville and Clinton should just pretty much stay rain this whole event. And then later this afternoon, again, that transition line will continue to push east, approaching the central and northern I-95 corridor by mid to late afternoon. Here it is. Here's that transition again, approaching the coastal plain by late afternoon. Now, keep in mind that while this transition may still occur, let me point out this transition up in here, Triangle region over to the northern coastal plain may still occur. Again, we're starting out pretty warm, so whatever accumulations that first hour or so of accumulation, potential accumulation, will be diminished thanks to just simply trying to cool the atmosphere down. And then finally, before the system pulls out, there might be one last period of snow, again mainly north of Highway 64 corridor as we get into the early evening. So there could be some light accumulations again across the northern coastal plain. This area right here across the northern coastal plain early this evening, we're keeping a close eye on. Right now we have less than an inch. We may need to bump that to 1 to 2 depending on how things evolve. By 10 o'clock, it's gone. The whole event's over. I will also mention that by late afternoon, it'll be over in the Triad as well. All right, so that's the way timing-wise is shaping up. I hope that helps everybody. Again, these aren't exact. These are very, very approximate, give or take an hour or so either way. But right now, this is our best estimate at what time we think those transitions will occur. Okay, when it comes to how much, again, the greatest snowfall amounts we're expecting along and north of Interstate 85. This 2 to 3 inch amount here in the Triad already incorporates what has fallen already and is already accumulated. The one area we may have to do some more adjusting is sort of in this area up here later today, depending on how much snow it takes before it actually starts to accumulate. So, but certainly south of Highway 64, it's going to be very little, if any, really any kind of problematic issues or accumulations. All right, so let's go ahead to, bear with me for just a second. Let's go ahead to the summary. And again, rain has already changed to snow in the Triad area. Again, 2 to 3 inches of snow is now expected. The transition from rain to snow will gradually spread eastward this afternoon. The changeover to sleet and snow in the Triangle is expected to occur during the mid-afternoon. And again, given the warmer initial conditions, lighter snow amounts are expected in the Triangle region. And then from Raleigh east and south, less than an inch of snow and sleet is expected, while north and west of Raleigh, perhaps an inch or two is possible. Now, accumulation rates and subsequent travel impacts will be dependent on snowfall rates. If and where the snow and sleet comes down hard, look for travel to become slick in spots. Okay, we're not expecting major widespread problems. It's all going to be localized and dependent on those pockets of heavier bursts of snow and sleet. And speaking of a few pockets of bursts of heavier snow and sleet, where those do occur, there could be a quick 2 inches of snow that could occur. And again, those are difficult to pinpoint. We're just going to have to nowcast that as we're watching the radar. And for places that did get any kind of snow or sleet accumulation, we'll be watching for patchy black ice conditions tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, as temperatures fall to or slightly below freezing. All right. So that summarizes today's winter weather event. Since this is our Monday morning weekly briefing, we're going to spend just a minute or two looking further ahead for the rest of the week. And essentially, once we get this system out of here, high pressure to our west will settle in. Northerly winds will keep temperatures a little bit on the cooler than normal side. By late week, we'll have another boundary beginning to set up over the area. We should see some warming by weekend, and there could be perhaps a risk of some rain with that boundary late week. Again, not anticipating any winter weather conditions for the rest of this week, despite obviously it's going to cool down for midweek. But by the time our next precip maker comes, it will have warmed up to preclude any winter weather concerns. No severe thunderstorm potential. And here's a look at the precip amounts. Again, dry on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday for that matter. This weekend with that boundary setting up, there could be some light rain, but again, rain, let me underline the word rain. It should be warm enough. It will be warm enough for rain. And looking ahead to next week, basically temperatures will tend to run above normal as you head to our south, below normal as you go to our north, and maybe some rainfall for next week. We'll wait and see how that all pans out. Quick look at the day by days, and one thing you'll notice here are these overnight lows. It's going to get pretty chilly here the next couple nights, and these temperatures in the 40s, that's about 15 degrees below normal. So anyway, some cold air coming in behind this winter weather system that's moving through today. Although good news is we should rebound by the end of the week, and the next chance for precip will come in over the weekend with rain being the precip type for that. All right, so that wraps up our weekly briefing, and again, let me just go right back to the summary for today's event, and with that, that summarizes or wraps up our weekly briefing.